Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of The Language of Leadership. I'm your host, Chuck Marting, and this week we have a guest with us. It's a very special person and a friend of mine that I've come to admire and respect very much, taking some of her classes, and I've gotten to know her, and I am truly grateful. You're one of the people that I had on my list that I've been wanting to get onto the show for quite a while. So, Marianne Renner, I'm grateful to have you here.
Yeah, thank you, Chuck. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for the honor of inviting me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yes, yes. Well, I know about you, and we just did your introduction, but I want to give you an opportunity to talk to our listeners and let them know a little bit about yourself.
All right, well, you know what? I am hailing from the Western Chicago suburbs, and we have a beautiful sunny day here today. But I'm a leadership coach, an author, and a keynote speaker. And I primarily help leaders really overcome self-imposed barriers that they don't even realize that they have in terms of some of the mindset, limiting beliefs that they hold so that they can become all that they were meant to become.
That's awesome. You are an accomplished author as well, and one of the things I wanted to have you on today was to talk about your book, To Stop Thinking Like an Employee, and I think it's very relevant to what we're doing here on the language of leadership, trying to help leaders understand how to become better leaders, giving them tools and the ability to work with their teams. I think for me, one of the hardest things, and I talked to you just briefly before we got on here, is employees. They have so many things going on in their lives as well. And you end up having to deal with not only the things that you're needing them to accomplish for you as a leader, but also having to be cognizant of they have a life too, and sometimes those things spill over into the workplace as well. Um, so I wanted to talk a little bit about your book and how it's going to help leaders and the things that they can take from that to help them not only grow as a person but also be able to help their team as well. So, um, how did you come up with the idea of this book? What led up to that?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So this book came out of many conversations that I had with individual coaching clients, leadership clients that come to me, and they'll say, Marianne, my job is sucking the life out of me, or, I want a promotion, or I don't feel fulfilled. That's a real common one.
Hmm.
Trying to, land this job, or, get this whatever goal, and they're really feeling stuck. And what I noticed was that I was having the same conversations with leaders over and over. And the ones who followed a particular set of principles saw unbelievable results. And so I started to notice patterns and themes and trends. And the main trend was that when they focused on what they wanted to get out
Hmm.
of their work, they stayed stuck. But when they focused on what they could give, unbelievable opportunities and doors opened automatically for them. So we put this into a framework based on these conversations. So I wanted to really just share this message with more people than I could possibly teach on an individual basis.
And that is an interesting insight because I would have not thought about that in how your mindset is when you're thinking about things, but it makes sense. So, consultant versus an employee or a leader versus an employee, how does that how does that come into
Yeah.
play?
Yeah. So the employee, and we're taught to think like employees. And I think when I think of this, it's really a mindset in it. And it's like, well, of course I'm an employee. How else am I supposed to think? But an employee shows up and thinks about, hey, I want a promotion. I want more pay. I want better benefits. Maybe I want a nicer workspace. And so what is it that I want to get? And, I want that 5.5% pay increase and 2.5, whatever it is. And I said, listen, what would happen if you went to work and instead of thinking about what you could get, think of yourself as a consultant going in to offer solutions to help that organization. What if you were a business owner or a consultant and your organization was your biggest client? How would you show up differently? And we just really turned everything completely upside down. on going in and with a mindset of service as opposed to all the things I wanted to get. So we
You
call
know
it
that,
consultant versus the employee mindset.
yeah, and I'm just sitting here because I'm thinking of all these things that I've gained through reading this book and some of the insights that I've had. And one of those is I don't really know if, as a leader, once you're made a leader, I think sometimes we're worried about the things that we're wanting to accomplish and not understanding the buy-in that you need to have from that employee, or that understanding
Yeah.
that they need to have. And so that's part of what I really, the mindset and the focus and how to do these things is what I really appreciated about, in reading, Stop Thinking Like an Employee. Um, I wanted to hit
Yeah,
each of
and
these.
I just want to jump in real quick, Chunky, because something that you just mentioned is like, hey, well, what am I thinking of as a leader? And am I an employee? Am I a leader? But it's all about mindset. So you, even business owners have employee mindsets, right? They're just like, what can I get? What can I get? But as a leader, oftentimes, and this is what I'm hearing from my clients, they're sitting in a meeting and they're thinking, do I sound smart? Do I sound intelligent? What are people thinking of me? Are they judging me? Do I look stupid? So this is all about me, right? And as long as the attention is on you, right, it's just a struggle. But when you can take that tension off of yourself and say, and how can I really add value here? How can I show up and serve and help all the people in this room? And just all of the weight is lifted off your shoulders because you're not worried about yourself. And it just unbelievable. Things just flow in an unbelievable way.
It's amazing how when a leader acknowledges somebody and tells them thank you, or I appreciate you, or any of those things, it's almost foreign when you do that with somebody. There,
Mhm.
it takes them back because they're not used to that. Um,
Right.
and I think it's so valuable, because people need to know where they're at and how they're doing, because like I said, we don't hear that. It just doesn't come across a lot of times. We're just hitting deadlines or hitting projects, and we need to get this completed. We need this done. What are you doing? And that kind of thing. And so people just lose their focus. And to that point, I've seen where employees are just, they stop caring. Oh,
Mhm.
why am I doing this?
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
my deal. I'll
Right.
get it done when I get it done.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you mentioned, saying thank you because the book focuses on 5 areas of giving, which as a consultant mindset, you're focused on giving, employee mindset focuses on getting. One of the 5 areas of giving is giving thanks and giving. Like, yeah, when is the last time you showed up in a workplace and said thank you?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, whether you're a leader and maybe you're thanking your boss or thanking your organization and showing that appreciation and giving thanks. That is one of the 5 areas of giving that is the consultant mindset that gets you to stop thinking like the employee.
Well, to me, it's not a big deal to, I talked to my wife Stacy about this, a couple months ago, because we often will, uh, go and get like a $5 or $10 gift certificate to Starbucks or something like that, and just go give it to an employee. Say, thank you for all you're doing. You're doing awesome, and we just wanted to say thank you. And they're just taken back by that because it's not common. It's not something that they've experienced before. But you know what? Those employees now, I don't ever have to worry about them not focusing or trying to accomplish the things. And a lot of times I don't even have to ask. They just do what needs to be done. That's
Right.
huge.
Yeah. It's a bit of a paradox and it's counterintuitive for people. Like, well, if I'm not focused on, what I'm going to get, like, how am I going to get it? But the reality is, I mean, you just turn it upside down and you kind of lean into the paradox as the more we've all heard that phrase, as you give, you receive. And it happens, tenfold.
Giving your attention, is one of the chapters, and I just want to read you something that I highlighted in the book because I felt that it was something that I really liked, and it was: a consultant mindset focuses on what you give. The first step is to give your attention. This means paying attention to ways you can add value and help your client win the game. Conversely, employee mindset focuses on getting attention. This is a scarcity mindset that's fixed on what about me? I think sometimes leaders get that too. What about me?
Yeah.
Um, but in this scenario, the employee mindset sees coworkers as competitors and is always on the lookout for getting what's owed him or her.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, and leaders, I mean, think about, leaders that, and I hear this from people that talk to me about their bosses all the time. What about me? My people will say to me, "Hey, I worked really hard on this project and my boss took all the credit." Right? So that's a leader, but that's an example of an employee mindset. But when you are giving your attention, you basically, it's again that consultant mindset. You're there to solve problems. You're there to offer solutions. So you've got to put your attention on all of your surroundings and be very intentional about looking for ways that you can add value, looking for problems that you can solve. And really, that's just, the thing about the book, if you read it, is that there are, action items at the end of the chapter and key points. And so one of the, we're telling people, here's a series of questions that will help you give your attention. Sometimes it's going in and asking your leader, hey, how's your day going? What's keeping you up at night? You know, any new projects that are, coming down the pike that I can help you with. So all of these things that are just helping you put your attention. I always say putting on your opportunity goggles, like just
Mm.
those glasses so you can see, watch for opportunities to add value.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I was going to say that I had highlighted was how do you know what the client defines as valuable? The best way is to ask. And I sometimes I think people are intimidated to do that. And do you think that's mainly because of the culture that they've either been a part of or they're not used to that having a voice or being able to ask?
It's so cultural. It's cultural in organizations. It's cultural just in our society, the way we're raised. It's all about being competitive, and it's all about, me, and even, children need to be taught, when they're fighting over each other's toys and things like that. So it's not something that comes naturally for many people. And I think because of the nature of the workplace, unless there are people who are setting that tone and defining that culture, it's not going to happen by accident.
You're exactly right. I believe that wholeheartedly because I've seen it. Um, but then when you're dealing with people like that, how do you, and maybe you have an answer for this, how do you teach them that? How do you teach them to feel
Well,
confident enough or recognize that they can add? I think it's just in the way that they deliver it, maybe, or how they go
mhm,
about framing the question they're asking. Is that correct, or what do you
yeah.
think?
I mean, well, first you get the book. I'm tongue in cheek, but seriously, I've had leaders call me up and say, "Hey, I want to buy these for my whole team." And so there are organizations whose whole teams are doing book studies and book clubs around the book,
Mhm.
so that they are building that culture and really you just lead by example, and I know you know this, Chuck, but if you are that leader and it's sort of top down and you want your people in your organization to think like this, I mean, if you're doing it, other people will follow. And
Hmm.
people are always following your lead. But think about if you're trying to stand out in your organization as a leader, what would it be like if you went up to your leader and said, "Hey, is there anything I can help you with?" Like, so you've been a leader, Chuck, and for those of you listeners who are leaders, like all day long, people are coming to you with their problems all day long, right? Hey, boss, I got this problem. What should I do? Hey, boss, I got this thing. What should I do? Right. And it's exhausting. How refreshing to have one person come in and say, "Hey, what can I do for you?" I mean, I've seen this, it'll stop them in their tracks, right?
Definitely. You know, that was one of the things that I had. relayed to my wife. Um, Not so much that I get frustrated, but sometimes it feels like people are asking permission to do something and want to make sure that it's okay, so they come to me. And even though I know they know how to do it, I have every confidence in the world they know how to do it, but they still come to me and say, "Hey, can you look at this and see what you think?" And I'm like, sometimes you feel like, well, just do it, man. You know what
Yeah.
you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like they need my permission almost. And so I
Right.
think
Right.
what you're saying is it can become frustrating and not
Yeah.
understanding that.
Yeah. And it's such a mindset to say, I mean, this is the best way I know how to help people understand. Again, and I think I referenced this earlier. What if you had your own business and your organization was your biggest client?
Mm,
You would never do that. You would never be like, hey, what do you think I should do here? You come in and say, hey, there's this problem, right?
yeah,
And here's what I think we should do about it. That sounds good with you. I'm going to move forward, right?
yeah.
So yeah, and it's a whole different way of showing up. And I'll give you an example, a story I write about Stephen in the book.
Hmm.
And Stephen he worked for a custom woodworking company, and they had major clients. But he was like, hey, I'm miserable going to work, and my job's sucking the life out of me. The boss isn't fair. The company doesn't treat everybody fair. Like the same thing that we hear over. And I said, well, what would be your dream? And he takes so much pride in his work. And he said, gosh, if I could I'm a master craftsman, and if I could teach a whole team of people how to take such pride in their work and be master craftsmen, that would light my soul on fire. And so we started talking about him starting his own business. And I
Uh-huh.
said, all right, until that gets started, though, what if you showed up at your job every day with a consultant mindset? And he said, yeah, I'm gonna try it. And it blew him away. He started going in and he started treating his team there like people that he could help and serve and add value and teach to be master craftsmen. His leadership team noticed his difference in attitude. He had 2 promotions in a year, and he was so happy that he didn't want to leave the organization. And they promoted him to a title where his job was going around all day long and just checking people's work, checking in with them, teaching them, the skill sets that they need, correcting them, and helping them to do. He created that team of master craftsmen exactly like he visioned, just by showing up with that mindset, and increased his salary significantly twice.
Wow. Wow. Well, and that kind of goes into the other thing that you talk about, and that's giving solutions. So, I mean, that was exactly what he was able to do there. I, it amazes me how little things like that turn into huge payoffs for people if
Mhm.
they just take that leap. And sometimes they need that direction, like what you're saying. It was a coaching opportunity that you had with this individual, Stephen, and being able to give him the directions. And one of the things that I like to tell people is a lot of times even when I go to my mastermind, I go to them because my favorite saying is it's hard to read the label when you're inside the bottle.
Yeah,
You're going to
for
see
sure.
something that I'm not seeing. So with what you did there, you're able to see something and clarify for him something that he already knew, but just didn't see how it was going to benefit him until you were able to show it to him. So that's
Yeah,
awesome.
well, thank you. I mean, yeah, as a coach, I mean, that's what I'm doing. I'm showing up with the consultant mindset. I'm giving attention, like I'm paying attention to what's going on, and then, offering those solutions. And that's, number three, you're gonna give your or number two, give your attention. And then
Hmm.
once attention, notice the problems or opportunities, and then you offer the solutions in a way that allows you to use your unique gifts and your talents and your abilities.
Yeah. Well, you talk about give the L factor. What is the L factor?
Ah, the L factor, L stands for likability, right? So here's the deal. Like the employee mindset gives very little thought to being likable. But the
Hmm.
consultant mindset is very intentional about the L factor because people want to work with people they know, like, and trust.
Hmm.
You listen. I don't know that any of us are immune. If you have the choice, like there are two people that are, so first of all, being good at what you do and working hard, those are givens. That's ground zero. Like that's the
Yeah,
starting baseline.
absolutely.
Two people, they're good at what they do, they're hardworking. One of them you really like and one of them you don't. Who are you going to giving good projects to and, that you really want to be close to? I mean, it's a no-brainer. And so, you know, a lot of people that I talk to, are kind of stuck in that employee mindset. Hey,
Mhm.
show up every day. I work really hard. I'm good at what I do. Why don't those SOBs give me a promotion? It's like, well, really? So, what's your body language? What's your tone? How are you showing up in a room? And one way to kind of think about that L factor is think about it as a personal brand. What is it that you want people to be saying about you when you're not in the room? And how do you think of it as like that tagline? Like, what's the thing that's going to make you likable in a way that stands out above the crowd?
Love it. It's how you approach it. I remember being on a team and we had a guy kind of like what you were just talking about. And in law enforcement, they have a saying, they call them rods, retired on duty. These guys just go through the motion. They just come and do the bare minimum. And I love this guy. He was a great man. He had a lot of knowledge and understanding. And he and I talked one day and I just looked at him and I said, "Why aren't you sharing your knowledge and the understanding that you have?" And he just looked at me. I said, "Do you know how valuable you are and how much you could teach these other guys on this team if they just heard you talk like you and I are talking?" But he had been shut down so many other times that he just like, I'll just do what I got to do and that's it. But it wasn't until I said that to him that it really, and then he kind of tested the waters with some guys and then they accepted it and they came to him about stuff and you saw it was almost like he had a rebirth in his career. It gave him that fire to come back in and do what he was doing, you know? So it was great.
Mm,
It was great.
yeah,
But I think sometimes even employees, even though they're not the leader, can make a significant difference like that with somebody else. But it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You got to ask, you got to be able to feel comfortable in talking to people. Um,
yeah.
how how would you suggest people approach individuals like this guy that I was talking about?
Well, I think, it's interesting because when it comes to mindset or changing your mindset, it's kind of like, if you have a couple going to couples counseling, but one of them doesn't want to be there, like there's nothing you like if they have to want it. So,
Yep.
it's really, I hate to say this, it's kind of on the responsibility of the other person. They kind of have to want it. But if they really want it and there's an openness of heart, really, they can do it, even if
Hmm.
they've shut down. Stephen was a really great example. I'll give you another example. I don't want to give away too much. You guys got to get the book, but there's in there about Kenneth. And Kenneth was a guy who he had his dream. He came to me, ended up when I helped him get his dream job, and he absolutely loved it, and they loved him. But due to a reorganization, a merger, like happens, every other week at companies now, it seems like. There was a workforce reduction, and his job was eliminated, and he was really upset. And I said, he said to me, what should I do about it? And I said, well, you tell me. And he said, I'm going to do the right thing, even when it feels like the wrong thing is happening to me.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the L factor. That's the personal brand. So, long story short, he ended up getting kind of rescued in the 11th hour. They said, man, we don't want to lose you. And so we think we can take two
Wow.
jobs that are being eliminated, combine them into one. We're going to give that to you. It's a raise and a promotion.
Wow.
So after his job being eliminated, he got a raise and promotion. 14 months later, he calls me up. Another merger acquisition, another workforce reduction. It happened to him again a second time. He said, what should I do? I said, you tell me. And he said, I'm going to do the right thing, even when it feels like the wrong thing is happening to me. And it did. I mean, could you imagine? So to pour salt in the wound, the organization asked him to help with the transition. So he was getting laid off, and his job was to help people who were getting laid off, like go through that and have a good attitude about it. And he said, people would stop me in the hall and say, "I can't believe they're doing this. I can't believe it." And he wanted to say, "Yeah, I know," but he didn't. He just said, "You know what?" He gave gratitude. He said, "This organization has given me a lot of opportunity. They provided a standard of living for my family that I wouldn't have had otherwise. I learned a lot." I mean, he's, I'm not going to tell you how it ended for him. You got to read the book,
Yeah.
but it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing, his story. And his story is just one of many that I see happen when he had that L factor, right? He just showed
Yeah.
up, had a good attitude. People really liked him. So his journey just keeps on going and growing.
That's awesome. We have I have one other thing that I wanted to hit on with the book that is pretty near and dear to my heart, and something that I have spent a lot of time studying and trying to implement in my own life, and that is gratitude. Um, there's an individual, Bedros Keuilian, that talks about giving daily gratitude to the people. And so one of the things that I've kind of taken on is to take, 5 or 10 minutes every day to recognize two or three people in my circle, just reaching out by text message, real quick, saying, "Hey, man, I am so grateful to have you in my life," and then just giving them an explanation or whatever. And I've been amazed how just taking that couple minutes to do that, how it has affected people that I've reached out to. I mean, immediate phone calls right after I do it saying, "Dude," and then just going in. They may have had, I don't, you never know what's going on in people's lives all the time. And I truly believe that things like that hit people at the right time, because
Mhm.
I don't predetermine who it is I'm going to reach out to each day. I just kind of sit there and I kind of think about it. I don't really meditate about it, but I kind of think about going, all right, who is it that I think I should reach out to? And then I'll look through my contacts, and they're the ones, and, but it's been amazing. And so I wanted to have you just talk briefly about gratitude and how powerful of a tool that is when you start practicing it.
Yeah, it's yeah. So first of all, how cool that you do that, Chuck. I just think that, and I think, gosh, you were just like a perfect commercial for the skill. But yeah, giving gratitude, is number four, the fourth way to give. And the employee mindset focuses on what's wrong. Oh, they cut our benefits again, and they did this again, and they did that again. And the consultant mindset focuses on what's great, and shows that gratefulness. And listen, you know, imagine, see, think about what you just did or what you do on a regular basis with your friends and people in your inner circle. We think, oh, that's too squishy to actually bring to an organization. Oh, what a refreshing imagine. So here you go, you're having a team meeting. I don't know, you guys probably had like your roll call or huddles or
Mhm.
what you called them, right, in the police department. So imagine at the very end, if you say, "Hey guys, we break, okay, meeting adjourned. Hey guys, this was a great meeting. I'm so grateful for you guys." So what would it be like if you said that to people? "I'm so grateful for you all." And that's how you ended a team meeting. Again, it has the same impact as what you just described for your inner circle. And so it can be really, really tremendous. And I can remember back, when we were in the thick of the pandemic, direct messaging people on my team and just, "Hey, how are you doing today? Let's go," so checking in with people on a personal level, especially people who are going through transition or life transition or having new babies and they're up all night or things like that. But it's transformational.
It
Trans
is truly.
for an organization. It's transfer and listen, if you're leader of an organization and you're listening to this, the energy level that increases amongst your team to perform at their very best, I mean, is through the roof.
Well, not only that, but I've seen that as I do that and I practice it with these guys or even with my own team, how, and doing it individually. I can thank the whole team, and I do that all the time. But then coming to each person or coming to another person at some point and just talking to them personally and expressing that gratitude, how far that goes, and you see a change in the way they act, how they treat other people, and then
Mhm.
they start giving gratitude, and so it's contagious. I think it's something that when you start practicing it, you start seeing the recipients of that grow as a result. um, I'm a man of faith, and first person I talk to every day is the man upstairs. And I think sometimes even through life, like we talked about earlier, we talk about woe is me type of thing. And so the first thing I do is start talking about gratitude, and how that has really helped me understand and look at the things that I've been given and how my life is continually being blessed. And so gratitude is a wonderful tool. I've really enjoyed learning and growing from that.
Absolutely. And when you want to show up with a consultant mindset and you got things that, are really frustrating you, and let's be honest, some of those things are very, very real. So it's where you place your focus. So we're not saying that things don't exist that are negative or to pretend they're not there, but whatever you focus on expands.
Mm.
So your point, there's a growth when it comes to gratitude. It's contagious, it grows, it expands. And so when it's where you place your focus, what you focus on expands. And so, gosh, even, hey, I'm grateful for free coffee in the break room. I'm grateful that, I get to park close to the building. I'm grateful for person and, telling somebody that you're grateful for them. There are lots and lots of ways, but I am a big believer in identifying at least three things every day that you're grateful for when it comes to your work, your team, your organization.
I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have you on the podcast today, and grateful for our ability to share this book with other people. And I talked about this earlier. Um, I'm going to be giving away some copies of that, but I know that you have um, the ability to share as well. So I wanted to give you that opportunity to whatever it is that you were wanting to do that we talked about earlier.
Thank you, Chuck. Oh my gosh, that means so much. So you can buy the book on Amazon, Stop Thinking Like an Employee. But I want to gift to all of your listeners two free chapters to the book. So you all can get a taste of the book. You could start reading it while your Amazon copy is on your way, and you can share it with anyone. But you can find it by going to my website, mariannerenner.com. So it's my name slash stop, STOP.
That's awesome. We'll have that in the show notes. So if you're
Awesome.
driving down the road and you didn't get to write that down, or you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see that link as well to be able to attach to that. And I'll be giving away 5 copies of the book. And what I'm going to ask is anyone that is interested in receiving one of those copies, I want you to email me, and I want you to tell me how being a leader and being able to better the lives of your employees and yourself, how you would benefit by having this book. And I will be more than happy to give those copies out today. So before we end, there's always a couple things that I do, and I'm sure that you've probably heard me say this before. But the first thing that I want to do is I want to acknowledge you, and I want to give you um, the opportunity to understand and know how important you are and what you've done in my life. I went through your facilitator program, and that really changed the way that I looked at how to facilitate and organize and do things. And it was not only that, but the interaction with the people that were in that group and your ability to touch our hearts and to be able to communicate how to be the best that you can be and do these things. I've seen the things that you've done, and we haven't even talked about the 48 days, the Eagles, and being part of that group. You're a leader there, and you very unselfishly give of your time in trying to help everyone develop and be better um, than they were before. And a lot of times when we do these things, we don't have people acknowledge us, or we just kind of like, yeah, they're doing that because they have to. But you do this because you want to, and I think that is so important. So I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge you and thank you for all that you do and let you know that it does make a difference and it means a lot to people.
Oh, Chuck, thank you. I'm telling you, I'm getting emotional over here. You were part of my facilitation certification program, and I got to tell you, you're right. You added so much to that group. It was a thrill and a joy to have you. It was such a tight-knit, special group. I felt that
Was.
whole time, and you were a big part of that. And I'm
Thank you.
honored that you were part of that group.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Marianne, I got one last question for you. And I ask this to people all the time because I know as a leader, and I know that you do too, reading and continuing to develop your skills as a leader and to continue to grow is a big part of life. And reading is something that I've loved from the time that I was a kid and growing as an adult and as a leader. Um, you come to Denver and you and I go out to lunch or we get together and do something and you look at me and you say, Chuck, you've got to read this book. This thing will help you as a leader. It's going to help you grow. What would that book be that you would recommend to me?
Okay, this is going to be tough. I have to go to my second recommendation, and I'll tell you why. First one, you've probably already memorized. The number one book that I tell everybody to read. Guess what I'm going to say? Do you know?
Mm,
Success
I
Principles.
the
Jack
success
Canfield's
principle.
Success Principles. I know that you already know that book inside and out, but that is my number one. So I'll go to my number two. It's called Big Potential by Shauna Core.
Hmm, I haven't
Sean
heard of that
is
one.
the author of a book called The Happiness Advantage, which that's, I would say, either of his books. But Big Potential, he's a Harvard researcher and I'm such a big gushing fan of his. But the premise of the book is that your intelligence or IQ is not the biggest predictor of your success. The biggest predictor of your success is your ability to help others succeed.
Wow.
And he's got a ton of research and fun stories and anecdotes in that book, but it's a good one.
That's awesome. We will have a link to that in the show notes as well. We'll also have all of your contact information and how people can reach out to you because I want people to be able to look and see the things that you do because you add so much value to a leader. I think it's very valuable, and so I want to be able to do that for you as well. Also, look forward to having you on again as a guest at some point on the language of leadership. We can talk about whatever else comes about that we feel that we can add value to. So
I love it. Thank you so, so much, Chuck. It's just been an honor and such a delight to be here.
awesome. Thank you.